the community and its relation to him. The people whom the Negro professional men have volunteered to serve have not always given them sufficient support to develop that standing and solidarity which will make their position professional and influential. Most whites, in contrast with Negroes, always the teachers of their brethren in block, both by precept and practice, have treated the professions as aristocrats. Okay? As aristocrats. Now, here it is. We are in the same situations today. Nothing has changed. Okay? We have had then a much smaller number than those who, under different circumstances, would have dared to cross the line, and those that did so were starved out by the whites who would not treat them in a professional class. This made it impracticable for Negroes to employ themselves in spheres which they could not function efficiently. For example, because of a law that a man could not be admitted to the bar in Delaware without practicing a year under the same lawyer in the state, and no white lawyer would grant a Negro such an opportunity until a few years ago. It was only recently that a Negro was admitted there. Negroes then learned from their oppressors to say that their children that were certain spheres into which they should not go because they would not have no chance therein in the development. In a number of places, young men were discouraged and frightened away from certain professionals by the poor, showing made by those trying to function in them. Let me take one of these hoodies off. I just came from outside. I washed my hands and everything, so I'm hot. I ain't got no rings on. Put some lotion on my hands, to get ready for this cam real fast. Yeah, Nike today, not Adidas, okay? Uh, but Adidas is on top. Few had the courage to face, and the same professional schools and institutions for Negroes were closed about 30 or 40 years ago, partly on this account. This was especially true of the law schools closed during the wave of legislation against the Negro, which right now, who is that? DeSantis is being sued, for not allowing Black studies. The school council buckles. This is a big issue, but that's a whole nother topic. We'll discuss that later in another video. At the very time of the largest possible number of Negroes needed to know the law for the protection of their civil and political rights. In other words, the thing which the patient needed most to pass the crisis was taken from him that he might more easily die. The one act among many others in outstanding monument to stupidify or male violence to those in charge of the Negro schools, as it serves as a striking demonstration of the miseducation of the race. Miseducation of the Negro, miseducation of the Negro, miseducation of the Negro. Almost any observer remembers distinctively the hard trials of the Negro lawyers. A striking example of their difficulties was supplied by the race of the first to be permanently established in Huntington, West Virginia. The author had entrusted him to the matter of correcting an error in the transfer of some property purchased from one of the most popular white attorneys in the state. For 6 months, this simple transaction was delayed, and the Negro lawyer could not induce the white attorney to act. The author finally went to the office himself to complain of the delay. The white attorney frankly declared that he had not taken up the matter because he did not care to treat with a Negro attorney. He didn't want to have anything to do with him. And it's still that way today. How many Black attorneys, like 25,000 lawyers that's Black in America that don't have a job? I'm just saying. Now, they're smart enough to be a lawyer, but they can't be smart enough to bring their brains together to form their own law business. Come on. Now, I know it takes money, but they can find money if they're loyal. You would think. I'm just saying. At one time, the Negro in medicine and correlated fields were regarded in the same light. They had difficulty in making their own people believe that they could cure a complaint, fill a tooth, or compound a prescription. However, we taught the world to do this stuff. We had the intelligence beat out of us, whipped out of us, lynched out of us, raped out of us, castrated out of us. The very same thing that they're talking about that we're lacking being miseducated is the very same thing that was beat out of us for centuries. I'm just saying. The whites said that they could not do it. And of course, if the whites said so, it was true. So far as most Negroes were concerned in those fields, however, actual demonstrations to the contrary had convinced a sufficient number of both Negroes and whites that such an attitude towards these classes is false, but there are many Negroes who still follow those early teachings, especially in highly educated, whom in school have been given the scientific reasons for it. It is the most remarkable process that while in the department of a university, a Negro may be studying for a profession, in another department, the same university is being shown how the Negro professional man cannot succeed. Some of the highly educated then give their practice to those who are often inferior to the Negroes, whom they must pass by. Although there has been an increase in these particular spheres, however, the professions among Negroes, with the exceptions of teaching and preaching, are still undermanned. In the same way, the Negro was once discouraged and dissuaded from taking up designing, drafting, architecture, engineering, and chemistry. The whites, they were told, will not employ you, and your people cannot provide such opportunities. Still the same way today, despite the fact that we have the richest slaves here in America, on the entire planet. I'm just saying. Sad, but true. And many of them still won't hire you today. Sad. In the same way, the Negro was once discouraged and dissuaded from taking up and designing, drafting, architecture, engineering, and chemistry. The whites, they were told, were not